For most of my career, the bottleneck in, I think in leadership was information. Not just leadership for my clients, but also in terms of even just my own business development, my own skills in whatever I do. You know, it's always about, well, who has the data, who has the expertise, how can I learn from them, who has the best thinking in this area, who has the best frameworks. I remember as a very young executive in Pepsi Cola, wow, nearly 30 years ago, there used to be like a big scramble to try and get the Harvard Business Review after the financial director had read it. There was almost like who could get the latest thinking, who could then sound the smartest, who could use the information to learn and advance their career, or so we thought. But today, as I'm recording this in 2026, AI is rapidly removing the bottleneck of information, which means a new bottleneck is going to emerge, and I think it's already emerging. And I think it's one that most people, and most leaders in particular, are not paying enough attention to. What is it? Well, what I'm seeing is that, you could say we're in an age of information abundance. So it's quite incredible, really, that my son can get access to the same information as me on a phone. Your competition can too. So what's the edge? It isn't information. The edge, I'm going to say, is the quality of the mind using that information. That is the edge. And I believe that this is going to be one of the most important leadership conversations of the next decade. That's my prediction. Now, I was having a conversation with a client recently where we got into talking about intelligence, and I had used the phrase real intelligence. And they said to me, well, what do you mean by that? It's an obvious question, because I think when most people hear the word intelligence, they think of IQ, knowledge, expertise, information. But that's not what I mean by real intelligence. To me, there is artificial intelligence, obviously, and then there's kind of intellectual intelligence that you have as a human. But also as a human, you have access to a deeper intelligence, what I'm going to call real intelligence. And that's available to you when you're not being hijacked by your ego or fear or pressure or old habits, old patterns, your identity or reactive thinking. That kind of deeper intelligence brings clarity, discernment, brings a level of wisdom, creativity, judgment. It brings the ability to see what really matters and to act from there. And I think this is why this matters really, really now. Is that AI can give you, it can definitely give you a lot more intelligence, but it can't guarantee that you're operating from your best level of intelligence. That's still a human responsibility. The mind of the human still has that responsibility. And I believe that as AI becomes more powerful, I think actually this human ability is going to become an even more important responsibility. Maybe to try and make it a bit more relatable, think about a decision maybe that you regretted. If you can identify something that you've regretted as a decision, the chances are it wasn't because you lacked information. You probably had enough information. But if you reflect on it, very often what you're going to see is that the issue was the state of mind you brought to that information. So maybe you were stressed or angry or defensive or anxious, or maybe you were impatient. Maybe you were trying to prove something. And because of that state of mind, you used the information in a way that wasn't perhaps the best. But then contrast that with a moment of genuine insight, a moment maybe where something became very obvious to you, maybe a solution just appeared, or a difficult conversation in terms of how to handle it became clearer. That, I'm going to guess, that didn't come from gathering more information or more data. I'm going to guess it came from a shift in the quality of your mind. My guess is the information might well have been the same, but because the quality of mind or the state of mind that you had, the intelligence accessing that information was different. Now, one of the biggest misunderstandings that I see in leadership in any context is the assumption that all thought deserves equal respect. It doesn't. Some thought is clear, some thought is creative, some thought opens up possibilities. But some thought is downright unhelpful. And very often it can be fear wearing a very convincing disguise. And for example, a leader might be under pressure thinking, I need to push harder, I need to push everybody else harder. A founder might think, if I don't control every single thing, everything's going to fall apart. Or maybe a CEO thinks, I can't let anybody see that I don't actually know. I don't know what they think I know. Now, those thoughts in the moment will feel very logical and intelligent to the person. They might even feel urgent. But they're not coming from that deeper intelligence, that real intelligence. Now, you might have a different phrase for it. Maybe it's your intuition, or that plays from just where your gut kicks in. But what is that? And I think the time that we're in, AI time, the AI era, is really going to highlight this innate human capacity that brings in this deeper level of intelligence. It's something different. So that those thoughts that I talked about, the ones that are unhelpful, it's not that the problem isn't having those thoughts. The problem is that we unconsciously obey them. And that's where people get hijacked, that they treat every thought with equal weight and equal authority. Now, if you think of AI as a force multiplier, as in it'll amplify whatever is already in the system. So if you are operating from clarity, AI becomes leverage to you, helps you move faster, communicate better, simplify complexity, and you can execute more effectively, no doubt about it. It's incredible. But if you're operating from confusion, fear, insecurity, reactivity, overthinking, indecision, AI is going to amplify that too. It creates more content from a confused strategy, which is coming from a confused mind. It'll accelerate poor decisions. It'll make a fear-based agenda look sophisticated. And if you can really, really reflect on that, what you'll see is that the technology isn't deciding the direction the human being is, or the human being's state of mind is. AI simply amplifies what's already there. So let me bring it back to you with some questions. And as usual, just before that, just a little nod. If you like some of this stuff, I'm going deeper increasingly on Substack, even this particular topic today. I've kind of taken this topic and drilled into it a little bit, maybe differently, but also in a deeper way as well. So check that out. It's going to be in the show notes here if you're interested, plus lots more. So some questions for you. Think about yourself in your work. What level of intelligence do you think you're operating from most of the time? Is it reactive? Is it coming from some sort of stress, insecurity, anxiety, urgency? Or is it coming from something deeper, what I'm going to call that real intelligence? And where in your work or your life might you be mistaking pressure, fear, urgency for wisdom? The wisdom that comes from that real intelligence. And what would become obvious if your mind became a little quieter and a little clearer, and you just let your mind settle and not be as caught up with your thinking? I think there's no doubt about it that we are at the beginning right now of a new AI era, and the AI era will reward speed for sure. But it will also punish unconscious speed. And it's definitely going to reward intelligence, but I think it's going to expose the difference between artificial intelligence and real intelligence. That's the human edge, real intelligence. And the next advantage for performers and leaders isn't going to be simply better technology, in my opinion. It's going to be in developing and learning how to curate a clearer level of mind while you're using the technology. Because ultimately, the question to me isn't how amazing or intelligent is the tool. The deeper question, I think, is, hang on, well, what level of intelligence am I leading from? And again, just to close out, what I'm saying today is that in the world we're in now, where there's an abundance of information and intelligence, the biggest competitive advantage of all is the quality of the mind using it. That's it for now. Ciao.